started with World Vision in 2004 when I first went on a child sponsorship trip with Elim, and I always feel that Elim, my very good friend, she was the one who actually started me on the whole getting to know World Vision and caring enough to be a child sponsor and feeling a lot for the child sponsorship program. That was in 2004 when we first went on to a trip to South Africa. It was a trip to Malawi to visit specifically children who were suffering from HIV. So that trip, I was actually a photojournalist. So Elim was, she had this amazing idea. She wanted to make the trip into somewhat like a documented process. So she got a videographer along, she got me along as a photojournalist, and at that time I really didn't know what the trip was all about. I just thought, so wonderful, I get to go to the other end of the world, a place where I would probably not have a chance to visit, but it really changed the way I look at whether it's charity work or child sponsorship and getting to know World Vision a lot better. But it wasn't until I went on to the trip where I got to see for myself how children in other countries are living their lives, sometimes in very harsh conditions, and it really got me thinking. I also remember this one trip we went to in South Africa, in Malawi. It was a hospital, a village hospital. When we were about maybe 50 meters away from the hospital, we could hear this very low murmuring. We were wondering, did someone forget to switch off the motor, or is another car nearby? But then when we got nearer, we realized that the murmuring were actually very soft wailings by the babies who were suffering, and also the mothers who have walked 5 to 10 kilometers barefooted just to get a kid to the hospital. And it was just this very constant, and you thought it was motor running, but it was actually people suffering not exactly in silence, but in a way that can't be expressed other than just this constant sigh. But it is like a motor running. And at the time, I remember Elim just, she's usually very jovial and very active and very energetic. She just collapsed and she knelt down on the ground and she said, where to start? And I think that was such an important point where we needed to recollect ourselves and then also reevaluate what we can do or what we can't do. Because there's so many people in need of help. So where do you start? That night when we went back to the hostel, there was something else that she said, which I've kept with me all these years. We just start one at a time. I think that's how it started. In 2006, I started sponsoring kids of my own. This is after having done a lot of seminars and talks in schools with different communities, letting people know a little bit more about World Vision programs, child sponsorship, the 5 different areas that World Vision support different communities in different countries. So in 2006, I started to sponsor my own children. Right now I have 6. I've got 2 in Mongolia, 1 in Philippines, 1 in Jerusalem, and 2 in Cambodia. I remember when I first started, I went to World Vision office and I asked them, said, how do I choose? And they also told me something which I still remember. I shared it with a lot of my friends and other people who might be interested to be child sponsors. They said a lot of child sponsors are actually female sponsors. So ladies will probably go for girls because they look cuter or because you can relate to them a little bit better. And then boys are actually neglected. And sometimes I've seen it for myself as well. Sponsors might seem as if they're doing window shopping, looking at photos and seeing which one is more appealing. But I think help doesn't go by looks, but it's actually in reality, about their lives. So I remember my very first visit, I told a World Vision office staff, just let me know where is help needed and who needs help, and I'll start with that. And that's how my 2 Mongolian kids started then. I was very lucky to have been able to visit my 2 Mongolian sponsored children. And that also changed the way I look at things. Because when you're a child sponsor, you get postcards, you get reports, you receive photographs and also figures. So these sponsored children become a code, like the country code, and there's your serial code, and then you've got your own sponsor number as well. And they just seem very 2D at first, because you're just seeing them on paper, on photographs and reports. It's not until you get to meet your sponsored children and being able to see physically a person right in front of you that you realize you're changing the lives of people, and that's very real. They're not just photographed, they're not just a figure, they're just not on paper. But over the years, especially if you have been sponsoring for 2 years, then you meet them, then you realize, oh, this is how tall they are, this is how big they've become, and you see their eagerness, you see their enthusiasm, and you see the shine on their faces. I remember when I first met my Mongolian kids in Mongolia. This outer Mongolia, which is more rural than inner Mongolia, which is where most people go for tourism vacations. I remember the girl was trying very hard to converse with me in English, and so she asked, how tall is your house? Because they would have their own concept of how housings are like. And then I said, 8 stories high. And she just looked up into the sky, and then her jaw just dropped. And I realized that our cultures are different. The way that we know the world is very different. And I was also very reserved then, because I saw all the other sponsors, mostly ladies, and they would go and hug and touch the kid, and then shower them with love, and then for me, I thought maybe that's a little bit too intimate. Yes, I mean, I've been in correspondence with them for a long time, but still, you're only here for a day. The parents are right there, so I felt that maybe I shouldn't, be so physical, because I'm not sure if it's appropriate. By the end of the day, after 12 hours, I regret it's one of my biggest regrets of not having expressed more of my feelings, to let the child know that there is someone else at the other end of the world that cares for you. I want to know that you're growing up well. I want to know that you're doing well in your studies, and that your life will be changed in small little ways. And I'm just glad we have this connection. So when we boarded the tour bus, it was air conditioned, and then we had tinted windows. So I went back to my seat, and I was just looking out the window, and I saw the little boy walking back with his mum, and his back was, I was looking at his back. So I was walking down this path, and then secretly you just wish that, I just want to see him another time, just remember this scene right here, because I'm quite sure I probably won't have another chance to go back to Outer Mongolia again. And then he just turned around, smiled, and then started waving. But I knew at the point in time when he was waving, he was actually looking at reflections. Because it was tinted window, he would not be able to know where I sat and whether I was looking out the window. But I think immediately you just feel that there's a connection. The child knows that he's turning back to show, kind of love, and just presuming that the child sponsor, me, is sitting in there and looking at him as well. And I remember that scene so well because I'm a photographer, and I remember seeing my own reflection on the glass. It was my face. I mean, now even when I'm recalling about it, right, it's still very vivid to me. So yes, even though we only communicate through letters, postcards, and I make it a point to send first aid covers and Singapore stamps to them because they like collecting stamps, that there is a connection, and it really makes a difference when you go on a child-sponsored trip and you see your kid physically, and being able to know that person in person.